And as always, in starting our meetings, we will again start with a land acknowledgement. And Waterfront Toronto acknowledges that the land upon which we are undertaking our revitalization efforts is part of the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. In addition, Waterfront Toronto acknowledges that Toronto has historically been a gathering place for many Indigenous peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples today. Having said that, the next item of business this morning is the approval of the meeting agenda. So could I have a motion to approve the agenda this morning? Is there a mover and a seconder? Thanks, Joe, and couldn't see who that was, but Jack, great. Thank you. Any discussion? Anyway, the next part of the meeting deals with declarations of conflict of interest. And in this respect, as I've previously advised, that with respect to item 8, that my company has existing development partnerships with one or more of the proponents involved in the Quayside project. And although my involvement with the proponents does not have anything to do with Quayside or any other Waterfront Toronto project, I will not be participating in the meeting during the discussion on that agenda item. With the consent of this meeting, I will ask Jack Winberg, who's chair of IRECT, to chair that portion of the meeting. And are there any others who may have a conflict?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I also have a conflict previously disclosed. I provide advice on certain matters to the CEO of one of the Quayside proponents. My advice doesn't relate in any way to the Quayside project and specifically includes any project involving Waterfront Toronto. However, to avoid the perception of a conflict, I'll continue to recuse myself from the discussions until the board has approved the selection of the preferred proponent for this project.
Thanks, Kevin. So thanks everybody for joining us today. You may recall that at our last meeting in December, we thought we were getting out of the woods with COVID and we had a in-person for some of the members. Unfortunately, we are not able to meet again today, but it appears the way things are moving that hopefully our next meeting we may be able to meet in person again. And at this time, I would like to welcome to the meeting our Fairness Monitor for the Quayside project, the Right Honourable Beverly McLaughlin. She has served as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada and is now an arbitrator and mediator both in Canada and internationally. She is a companion of the Order of Canada and has received 35 honorary degrees. And we are honored to have Ms. McLaughlin as the Fairness Monitor for Quayside. As you're aware, Quayside will be discussed further in the closed session, and our Fairness Monitor will speak to you at that point, unless Ms. McLaughlin, there's anything you would like to say at this point in time.
Well, all I would say is that I'm delighted to be here, and I have been delighted and found it a great pleasure to preside over the various steps of the process leading to one item on your agenda, which is the Quayside selection process. And thank you. I'll have more to say later. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. Again, we are honored and appreciate all that you've done to help us through this. Moving on, February is Black History Month and an opportunity for continued reflection on addressing racial disparities. As we've discussed, Waterfront Toronto is developing a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy for its workplace and is taking a hard look at cultural representation within its workforce and on its advisory committees. To recognize Black History Month, Waterfront Toronto will be highlighting its year-round commitment to inclusion. This will include a retrospective on the first waterfront artists in residence, the Black speculative arts movement, and the many events, exhibitions, and installations they have produced over the past year. The corporation will also reflect on the contributions of Lucy and Thornton Blackburn to our city. And just as a matter of interest, I don't know whether everyone is aware, but they have an amazing background. They came to Canada from being slaves in the United States in 1831, and were the beginnings of the Underground Railroad to allow slaves to come to Canada who wouldn't be deported back to the US. Anyway, they will be honored through the art installation called Site Specific in the West Dawnlands. These and other reflections on Black History Month will be featured online and in the monthly newsletter. I believe our board recognized that Waterfront Toronto and the city aspires to be a shining example of diversity around the world, and we have a duty to make sure that the waterfront is inclusive of all people, and the corporation will continue to engage the Black community and other voices to ensure we build diverse communities where people feel included. Moving on to the next item onto the agenda, we'll be dealing with an update on the Villiers and Keating West Public Art Master Plan. I'm aware that we've received a report from staff on some of the planning that's being done for Villiers Island, but to supplement that today, I would ask George to turn it over to you and introduce your team.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I'm going to just do a quick introduction and then turn it over to Chris Klasik and Chloe Catan, who will walk you through a short presentation. The reason I wanted to bring this to your attention is, one, is it is part of our 5-year strategic plan. We do want to ensure that art is a big part of our cultural activity that we integrate into our developments. But one of the big things Waterfront Toronto brings to this is that we have a master plan, and we try to integrate what we're doing on different precincts. So Keating and Villiers are part of the discussion today. But this also fits into some discussion that we'll have in the future around our philanthropy efforts and some interests that we have in terms of philanthropic support that might actually help us in terms of helping to deliver this vision. So I will just turn it over to Chris and to Chloe, and we'll walk you through that. I should just point out that this will be going to council eventually, which is the other reason I wanted to bring this to your attention. Chris.
Can I get the first slide, please, Charmaine? So I just wanted to remind the board that Waterfront Toronto takes a unique approach to public art. It's actually derived from the official plan for the waterfront by the city, and the idea is that we pool the public art contributions that private developers would typically make and spend on their site into a fund that's able to procure larger, I would say more impactful pieces in prominent locations in the public realm, so in public parks and public streets. And thereby we kind of curate almost an outdoor gallery. And this is done on a precinct by precinct basis. We've done public art master plans for 2 precincts already, the West Dawnlands, and if you walk around there, you'll see many pieces of public art all delivered by us. And the East Bayfront, where we are in the midst of implementing that project. For Villiers and Keating, we have several goals for this project. We want to create a coherent framework for both of these neighborhoods. We want this to serve as a kind of bridge between the north shore of the harbor and down towards the Portlands. Some of the themes for the art will be trying to celebrate the site, its history, as well as the water. And we'll be working to establish formal as well as informal connections with the Indigenous community through public art and associated programs. And we want to really reflect diversity, as George already mentioned. So this is our third major public art framework plan. It will be going to the Toronto Public Art Committee in the next couple of months, and then to City Council, at which point we collaborate with the city and they collect those development charges that would ordinarily be expended on the sites. And a portion of that comes to us, and then we implement art pieces in accordance with the plan and procure them through competitions. So I'm going to let Chloe just walk you through the contents of the draft plan right now. And Chloe, are you available?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, take it away.
Charmaine, could I have the next slide, please? So this is the site area, and the plan envisions a unified art destination that runs across 2 precincts with the Keating Channel at the center. The site, as you can see, is surrounded by many waterways, the new mouth of the Don River, the lake, the Paulson Slip, Shipping Channel, and Parliament Slip. Therefore, the focus on water and its shorelines is at the center of this plan. Next slide, please. For the consultation process, Waterfront Toronto worked with Bespoke Cultural Collective. We worked closely with the City of Toronto staff and have been presenting it to the Toronto Public Art Commission, TPAC. We also interviewed a number of subject matter experts ranging from art administrators, curators, landscape architects, as well as local artists, knowledge keepers, and urban designers. We discussed the 4 main areas of focus. Indigenous relationships, environmentalism and sustainability, heritage, histories and neighborhoods, and new and emerging practices in contemporary art. Next slide, please. And this is what we heard from those consultation sessions. People wanted it to be essentially site specific and highlight the pluralism that is integral to our city. They wanted it to have a strong focus on Indigenous perspectives, including working on processes that remove barriers for Indigenous artists. They wanted it to provide solid early stage processes and artists capacity building, such as the Artist in Residence program and contemporary art opportunities that Waterfront Toronto is currently providing. They wanted it to be forward-looking and flexible to keep up with developments in public art. They wanted it to reflect the inclusivity that in the way that we commission artworks and in the artworks themselves. And a key issue was sustainability and climate change, and the need to reflect this critical issue of our time in terms of thematics, practices, and materials in artwork. Next slide, please. So based on what we heard, we formed the key principles of the plan to explore layered histories, to honor Indigenous peoples and practices, to respect the environment, to engage contemporary issues, to promote diversity inclusion, to commission a variety of artworks in typography, in scale and duration, and to promote artistic excellence. Next slide, please. So the vision, which we've mentioned before in a few other slides, highlights 3 main things. The plan will bring together on a site that unifies 2 precincts, a series of outstanding artworks that have local, national, and national significance. The primary inspiration is the extraordinary nature of the site itself, a dynamic confluence of river and lake defined by natural environments, social spaces, and built structures. And art will catalyze the public realm in new and meaningful ways, speaking to issues of our time. Could I have the next slide, please? This is the theme diagram. It shows sort of the high-level buckets of themes that are being recommended for artwork in this plan. It also shows how they overlap and interconnect. So with water and waterways at the center, the other 4 main themes, public art of our time, multiple layered histories, committing to the environment, and Indigenous place knowing, are interconnect and creatively cross-fertilize. Next slide, please. This is a map of public art locations, and as you can see, they are sited in prominent locations across the island, and across the other side of the Keating Channel, connecting waterways and their shorelines to promenades and bridges, parks and plazas. Next slide, please. And a very innovative part of this plan will be a new art trail, which will weave its way throughout the parks on the south side of Villiers Island, creating an unprecedented, flexible platform for changing and permanent outdoor art. There will be infrastructure for temporary art placed along the main paths of the parks and the river valley. So art locations will be equipped with different combinations of electrical hookups, water hookups, data, and tie downs. This infrastructure dispenses with the need for, noisy generators and ballasts, which are expensive and time and energy consuming. This infrastructure is invisible, so when there's no art, it'll just be a lovely park area. The open air route will create multiple opportunities for visitors and residents to discover and engage with exciting contemporary works by local, national, and international artists. Next slide, please. And here's the trail, with the temporary locations in blue and the permanent locations in pink. As you can see, the trail weaves through the entire park system of the area and has multiple entry points. It is also, it has sort of, different kinds of locations. So while some will be quiet, discoverable places, others will be in highly transited areas that are next to the destination play area or certain major entry points to the park. Waterfront Toronto is currently in discussions with a prospective donor who is interested in giving $25 million to the programming of the art trail. The funds would go towards commissioning of permanent and temporary art, as well as operation of the art trail. Next slide, please. And this is where we are in the timeline. At the moment, Waterfront Toronto has given a draft of the plan to city staff for review. And after the review process, we will design the plan and then take it to the Toronto Public Art Commission, hopefully March and April, depending on how long the review takes, and then to City Council either in May or June of this year. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Extremely impressive, amazing plan, and also congratulations on the potential for a $25 million gift to help implement, which is truly spectacular. All looking very, very good and very promising. Do any of the board members have any questions with respect to the presentation? Okay. Actually, I just had one, George.
Sure.
In terms of the entire cost of the art that's being shown, what portion does the donation pay for, and have we estimated what the total cost is?
I'll let Chloe go into it. We do get funding from, as Chris pointed out, from the city with regards to some of the permanent art, but this would defer some of that permanent art, and we are generally responsible for the temporary art, so this will help us on the temporary art in terms of advancing that. I don't know, Chris or Chloe, if you want to add to that.
Well, what I can say is that the art trail, we won't be incurring any costs other than the infrastructure that we're putting in, and that is being paid for with the public art contribution that is required as part of the bridges. So the new bridges we're building to Villiers trigger a public art contribution under city policy, and we're using a portion of that to pay for the permanent infrastructure that the temporary art will sit on, as well as, well, originally spreading it across all of the permanent art pieces, but with this donor, they'll basically be topping those up, and we'll probably use our funds to do one piece, and they'll pay for the others. And then the temporary programming of the trail will be no expense to us ever.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I'll now ask for a motion. Sorry,
There's another hand up.
Oh, sorry, missed it.
Hi, Steve. Sorry, just one quick question as a follow-up. The $25 million, how long will that last? You said that's kind of for operations as well. Do we have a projection?
Yeah, so I think that's estimated to cover the first 5 to 10 years of operation, and part of the discussions we're having with the philanthropist is how we could continue to fundraise, or they could continue to fundraise to keep it going in perpetuity.
So they're, Jeannie, I'll just add, they're fully aware of some of the ongoing challenges, and I'm not in a position to share a lot more detail as they're in discussions, and hopefully they'll be able to share more details with us and the mayor shortly. But I think they recognize that they're seeking additional potential philanthropic support for ongoing support.
I guess one last thing I'd like to add to that is that remember that there are no empty plinths on this art trail. So, you know, there's there are the permanent pieces, but the temporary pieces, it's infrastructure that's built into the park and is invisible. So, you know, there might be a time when there's, for example, at Nuit Blanche, it might be full. Every single location might be full, but there might be times when there's, you know, just a few pieces. It would be a living kind of a very dynamic art trail that changes a lot. And you know, when there's no art on certain locations, it's a lovely park. So it's not like there's an empty plinth waiting for constant activation.
Okay, wonderful. Very exciting. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I will now ask for a motion to go into the closed session. Okay, Joe and Jack.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Jeannie and Joe. I'd just like to remind everybody or everyone that any resolution in the closed session needs to be passed when the meeting returns to the open session. Now that we've had the motion, all in favor? Carried?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We're back in public session. The motion before the board, I believe Charmaine is going to put up on the screen so everyone can see it. But for those who may be too far away, the decision of the motion is that on motion made, and I'm going to ask Leslie to move it and Wendy to second it. There are chairs of a member. Leslie's a member of our IREC committee, and Wendy is the chair of our Human Resources, Governance, and Stakeholders Relations Committee. So I'll ask that they move and second it, and that it be resolved that the decision of the Evaluation Committee, as supported by the Steering Committee and the Fairness Monitor, that Quayside Impact Limited Partnership be invited to negotiate the project agreement with Waterfront Toronto regarding Quayside, and that resolution be approved.
So Jack, before the vote, I think I'm going to just share the steering committee's recommendation was supporting the evaluation committee's recommendation for Quayside Impact. We had gone through in detail discussions with the evaluation committee, ensuring that the direction established by the board, both with regards to the priorities that the project was to address, and that the process that was identified in terms of weighting through the scoring system was applied as per the direction of the board. And we were completely confident in the integrity and the application of that process. If I may, I'm going to just turn it over to our fairness monitor, former Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin, if she could share her opinion as well on the record.
Thank you. I have assisted and sat through all of the processes, all of the meetings, etc. And I am entirely satisfied that the process has been rigorous and that it has met all the requirements that the board has set out, and all the requirements for a fair process. This is more fully detailed in my written letter to Quayside and in my endorsation of everything that has happened up to this point.
Thank you very much, Ms. McLaughlin, and we do thank you for your involvement throughout. It's been very much appreciated, and the letter that Ms. McLaughlin just referred to is part of the public record, or will be shortly. Alrighty, so if is there any further comment or discussion relating to the motion? Seeing no hands up, I will ask now for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please. Show with your hand.
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Aye. Oops, are there any opposed? I see none. Any abstentions?
Okay. Well, then now that I'm back in control, I guess it's a big thank you to everybody. And again, to our Fairness Monitor, we really appreciate everybody's hard work. As you may be aware, I was involved as chair during a very difficult time to sort things out, and I'm very pleased that we're proceeding in what I believe to be a very positive fashion and with a proposal that I believe we'll meet all the public objectives and people will be really satisfied with where we're going. So again, looking forward to taking the next steps. And at this point, I'll just ask for a motion to terminate the meeting. Okay, Wendy and Jack, all in favor? Approved. So thank you.